Pigweed here. Today we review a porter and discuss an old English poem about monsters. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, good to see you.
What do you know? It's been a while. Long Johnny
Right.
here. That's very good.
How about some beer and conversation?
That's definitely a good idea.
Okay.
What's on your mind?
Well, Hrothgar,
Yeah.
Unferth,
Okay.
Hygelac, and Grendel's mom.
Ah, yes, I see. It must be time for P&C's Shortcut to the Classics.
That's right, where we take a book, that we read some of the great books by the great authors, just as long as they're not too long.
Yeah, this one was a little long, but that's okay. It's Beowulf by Anonymous.
I think maybe you mean Anonymous. Yeah, you wrote a lot of books.
Perhaps, yeah. Moving on.
That's right. So, okay, good old Anonymous is going to give us this one. And now what this beer, this is an anonymous beer.
No, this is not made by any brewer.
Okay.
Made by yours truly.
All right, very good.
And it's a robust porter. Brewed it a couple of weeks ago, and I've had 2 out of my last 3 beers did not have any carbonation. And this looks okay.
Yeah.
And it's a robust porter, so I think she's coming in about a 7.
And, all right, nice flavor there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's got a good flavor.
Good flavor, good body. It has a little pop to it.
Yeah, I've got there's carbonation going on in there. Yeah.
Yeah, carbonation worked out. The mouthfeel is nice.
No, you did right with that one.
So why are you calling it robust? Just because it's 7?
Yes, I think so. I think that's all. That's all. A little bit more mouthfeel and a little bit more oomph.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems to go, I think a dark, strong beer kind of goes along with Beowulf.
I think so, yes. Yes.
Well, there's a lot of beer drinking in
medieval.
Yeah,
with
you know,
it. A lot of beer and mead.
Beer and mead. Yes,
It probably wasn't particularly carbonated anyway.
That's right, because they just have a big vat over in the corner, and you'd slosh your mug into it.
Put a hot poker in there and warm it up.
Yeah, I saw that in a movie one time, where it was a movie about Oliver Cromwell, and he's sitting there around the fire, and he just came in from the cold, and he takes a mug of beer, and they stick a hot poker in it. I'm thinking, really? So I tried it one time. Warming up beer is disgusting.
Not recommended.
No, not by me. All right, so how are we going to do this?
Well, I say let's just give me some who, where's, and what's, since we don't know who Anonymous was.
Right.
What do we know about this book, and how did it come to get in our hands?
Yeah, so trying to date these old manuscripts is always a bit of a challenge because, you know, the authors don't typically write, you know, on eve of St. Charles's Day or anything like that. So what we have to go by is internal evidence and external evidence, right? Internal evidence, it references certain things, like certain historical characters that are real, actual characters. Hygelac, Hrothgar, there are several historical figures in the poem that date from like the 6th century. And also some of the language itself seems to be consistent with that kind of time frame. But as with so many other old manuscripts,
that is in terms of the setting of the story.
Yeah. Right. So but then it couldn't have been written, you know, in the beginning. Obviously, it had to be written after the story is done, right? So the story itself takes like 70 years or something. So the story has to be written after that fact. And so then an early date would be 7 to 750, that kind of time frame.
Right.
Some people say that's right because it fits with it has a lot of pre-Scandinavian history in it. It has a lot of references to things that would be consistent with that time frame. The language seems to fit with that. Other people say it's more like 850 to 900, and then other people date it even later than that. The first manuscript we have is like something like in the 900s.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But I think people toss around early 10s as like the consensus number.
Well, maybe. I mean, I've heard different theories about what the consensus is on the dating of it, because there's just a lot of debate about it. Because we don't. How do you really know?
So what we have after the fall of the Roman Empire, it was colonized by Anglos, Jutes, and Saxons.
So the Romans leave England around 450 or something like that. Yeah, and then. So you have Christianity in England because of the Roman Empire up until, and the reason I mention that is because one of the things that affects the dating is the fact that there are references to the Bible in Beowulf.
Yes.
So you wouldn't expect a bunch of Vikings to reference things in the Bible.
Right.
So it was clearly written by a Christian. At least the version that we have was clearly written by a Christian, or by somebody heavily influenced by Christianity.
Yes.
So it wasn't written by some Viking in the year 600. So around 450, Romans leave, and then you still have Christianity there, and then the Anglo-Saxons come in, and then the Anglo-Saxons are converted to Christianity in around this time, around the 600s.
Right. And so this is written by ex-Scandinavians, right, who are now anglicized, and reflecting back on their ancestors back in the old country.
Yeah, it seems
right?
that way.
It's an English poem.
Yeah.
Right.
Not about England, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a way.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So there's one theory is that it was an old pagan story that some Christian retold. Another theory is that it was an old. The question is,
I kind of like that one. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that theory is that it's an old pagan story that a Christian retold. But another theory in this book, my version of it, he says that it was a Christian, sort of a Christian apologetic towards the pagans, saying, "Look, I'm going to present to you the best of paganism, and it still sucks."
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can get more into that later on.
Right.
So from that kind of a perspective, I was thinking actually after I read this, I read the White Horse by Chesterton, which is about Alfred the Great and his battles with the Danes.
Yeah.
And I was thinking there's a lot of similarities between these two stories. Alfred fighting against the Vikings, trying to restore the kingdom of Wessex in England, and Beowulf. So I actually had a big chat with ChatGPT about similarities between the Battle of the White Horse and Beowulf. It's actually kind of an interesting topic.
Yeah, I would say one of the early surprises for me, because I haven't touched this thing probably since high school, was I just assumed it was a pagan story. And then right from the very beginning, you get these
biblical references, right?
Biblical references. I was like, well, what do you know?
Right. And the debate, though, is it a pagan story? When we say written by, it's really written down by.
Okay, well, that's a great distinction.
Yeah.
Because it was probably originally an orally transmitted story that some scribe wrote down at some point.
Or many parts of it was orally transmitted.
Yeah, so that's another thing. Like, for example, in biblical studies, when people are looking at the first 5 books of the Bible, a lot of people assume this thing called the documentary hypothesis, that it was compiled from 4 different sources.
Right.
Okay? So you have to there's different ways to deal with something like that. You can say, we can deal with the final text as we have it, or we can try to figure out what these sources are. Well, the same thing applies to Beowulf. There are certain things in the structure of Beowulf that make some people think that there were a couple of different strands that were tied together. Mm-hmm. Like the fight with Grendel and Grendel's mother was one story, and the fight against the dragon was another story, just as a simple example.
Right, that seems obvious to me.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because they're very different.
Yes.
And Beowulf is a different sort of a character. Although you could just...
different settings, is there different countries?
Different settings. Although you could just see that as character development. But still, yes, it seems like that would be a logical thing. That you have Grendel's mother, and then you have the dragon, and those two things get tied together. Mm-hmm. There's also the question of whether Beowulf was ever a real person or not.
Right.
Because we have all these other characters that are historical characters.
Right. His uncle, for example.
Yeah. But then Beowulf, there's no record of him, except for this story.
And the dragon they never found about.
The dragon is...
I hope I didn't blow the story for anybody here.
That reminds me of this thing I read from J.K. Rowling the other day, where someone was making some snide comment, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that I had to clarify this. Wizards aren't real."
Wow, you just broke the hearts of thousands of young pre-adolescents.
That's right.
She did.
Okay, back to the...
So let's get back to the dating and everything. So we have a manuscript from around 1000, but it apparently disappeared and nobody knew about this.
It just sat in somebody's library for 800 years, monastery or whatever, and then almost burned to the ground. Apparently somebody went in and it was just throwing books out the window.
Wow.
While this building was burning, knowing that it contained, Bede was the biggest guy,
right.
And he had the biggest collection in known history. He had like 250 books. Yeah. So there's just not that much there, and to think, and how much other Anglo-Saxon poetry do we have? I think we have like 3 poems or something like that. So the fact that
we don't have many copies.
We don't. I mean, so it's hard. It's hard to stake too much on this one manuscript because really it's all we have.
And it wasn't a time period in history that was conducive to saving manuscripts. I mean, you have Vikings running around destroying everything,
or even creating manuscripts, right?
Well, sure. I mean,
written language. Because during the Middle Ages, and we're barely there. Only the church was writing anything down,
and that was in
copies
Latin and Greek, so it wasn't even in the vernacular. And this was written in the vernacular, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Which I'm even almost surprised that they had a written language. So that's good for us.
Yeah. So the whole process of making a book was a very serious thing. I mean, paper was expensive, and then you had to have somebody who was literate who could do this. A scribe.
So the fact that this thing is called written in what they say Old English.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that the various translations are going to be roughly similar. I read or I saw 2 different Dostoevsky translations, and yes, they were different, but they weren't as different as these translations. I'm thinking English to Old English must be closer than English to Russian, but not really, because these 4 translations that I'm aware of, and there must be many more.
I think part of that has to do with trying to preserve the alliteration, because Anglo-Saxon poetry, we think of poetry as rhyming, but Anglo-Saxon poetry doesn't rhyme; it uses alliteration. So,
the Seamus Heaney, which is apparently a big deal these days,
which is what
a recent translation.
Okay.
Doesn't nearly have the alliteration that this version has.
Yeah, so how about, let me just read a little passage.
All right, I've got a marked one over here I'd like to share.
Go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so summoning sacrifices, saying old words aloud, praying the demon who damns would deliver them. Old customs were curious, but comfort was missing. Their hope was in hell, their heathenish ways. In dire need and deep thoughts they did not know God, the judge who loves justice, who judges our deeds. The high King of heaven, the holiest one, was not known to them, though they needed his wisdom. In each one of these, it's like it plays off of S and then D and then C and then H.
So this is right as the fight begins.
Right.
As they neared the foe, hardy-hearted heroes of war, aiming their swords on every side to the accursed. No keenest blade, no fairest falchion of fashioned earth could harm or hurt that hideous fiend.
Yeah.
Right? So it's full of... Now, the Seamus Heaney is also written in stanza form, but it lacks this commitment to alliteration.
So I had assumed that the reason the translations were different is because they're trying to preserve alliteration, and that's hard to do. And you're bound to come up with different English words to do that.
Well, I mean, mine is totally...
Yours is not doing that at all.
So I want to read at least a sentence or 2 from mine.
Does everybody want to do just like the first 4 lines?
Sure.
Yeah.
And so chapter 1 I got now. So even the first word apparently is like an attention getter. It's like hey.
Right.
So mine is now.
Okay, mine is here.
Mine is yes.
So you're already a little Jack. Go ahead there. Longinus, and just give me first couple sentences and see how we do.
Yes, we have heard of the glory of the Spear Danes, kings in the old days, how the princes of that people did brave deeds.
Okay, so here are mine. Hear the song of Spear Danes from sunken years. Kings had courage then, the kings of all tribes. We have heard of their heroics. We hold them in memory.
Now, Beowulf bode in the burg of the Skydlings, leader beloved. And long he ruled in fame with all folk, since his father had gone away from the world, till awoken heir, haughty Halfdene.
Okay.
All right, so you have the hardest translation
This
to
is
understand.
now, I would like to point out that this is from Spark Notes. This is for students.
Right.
Because what it does is, after every chapter, it gives you a
Summary of what's
Summary,
going on.
okay.
It's more like a prose version. It's
Okay.
not, it's still a little bit stylized,
Still a summary.
but
Yeah.
it's more prosy. So the summary of this one would be: Beowulf became the ruler of the Spear Danes and was beloved by all. He had an heir. So that's more readable. So okay, you want to talk about the story?
Yeah,
You guys
yeah.
ready?
Right. Yeah.
So you want to summarize the story real quick?
Well, so you've got.
This is a problem.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah, Hrothgar is having his place, which is called Heorot, is being
like a big mead hall,
big
right?
mead- right,
Big,
yeah.
It's like a party central.
Yeah.
And that's symbolically really important,
Yes.
which we can talk about later.
Yes, we can. I think you're right. And this monster, Grendel, keeps coming in at night and eating people.
I think he's self-hating creature, and he just hates everybody having fun. If they would just keep it down and not have so much fun, then he probably wouldn't go over there and try to eat everybody.
Well, we
What
definitely
I read
have-
in one of the commentaries I have in the Norton Critical Anthology here,
Right.
was that Grendel was hurt by people having fun, or people having joy. So when he walked by the hall and he heard people drinking and having fun and laughing, that was something that really hurt him.
I agree.
Well, he's an outcast. So
So he goes in, he slaughters men,
Yeah.
and nobody can stop him.
Right. So Beowulf, across the sea, hears about this and selflessly goes over to try to help for whatever reason.
Right.
Well, is it selfless, or is he just wants to create more fame for himself?
Well, you're right.
Well,
Well, I mean,
okay.
you know, everybody.
Yeah. Oh, we did both.
Heroes,
Yeah.
heroes seek glory,
Sure.
Right.
and so that's what they
what
do.
heroes do.
That's
So
what
he-
heroes do.
That's what
And
heroes
so,
do.
So the Danes are Denmark, and then this is Geatland.
Yeah.
The Geats are
Southern
Sweden,
yeah.
right across the water. So
Yeah.
they hear about this, and there's some history between Hrothgar and the Geat people.
Right.
They're tight,
Oh, actually, they had some conflicts in the past. Yeah. So
but they helped one another out.
They helped,
so,
yeah. So Beowulf comes over, decides he's going to kill this monster, and decides to do it
I
barehanded.
know. So this is the first thing. He's like, well, Grendel doesn't use weapons
Yeah.
or wear armor.
I mean, I could do
Right,
it.
so
with
he
the
takes
sword.
it all
So
off.
I'll
Takes his helmet
I'll just
off.
fight you with my bare hands.
It's kind
Which
of like,
actually was a thing that saved him, right?
Yeah, well, you come to find out that weapons weren't helpful anyway.
because all of
His
his
skin was too
friends are out there whacking on this thing with swords, and it's not doing anything. So Beowulf grapples with Grendel and rips its arm off.
Yeah, so you can only wrestle him to death.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
And there is so much emphasis on Beowulf's incredible grasp. He
Yeah.
grasps the hand of Grendel, and Grendel realizes he's in trouble.
And rips the arm out, and Grendel doesn't die there.
No.
Grendel leaves, and Beowulf's really sad that he doesn't have the corpse.
But he has the arm.
But he has the arm. He has the arm and the claw, which he nails up on the wall.
They hang it up over the mantle of the fireplace or
Yeah,
something.
kind of like hanging a deer head up
Yes,
there, right?
and then, you do what you do in Heorot and
And you have a big party.
have a big party.
That's right.
Drink a lot of beer, drink a lot of mead.
Yeah.
But then, unbeknownst to these poor folks, Grendel's
And,
mother...
and Beowulf's ready to go home. He's like,
Yeah. Okay, did my job.
Yes. My job here is done. You're welcome.
I've finished the mead, and
I'll
it's time to go. Give me some mead in a go cup, and we're on our way out, out the door.
And if you want to throw in some gems and
Yeah.
armor, that's
That's
fine
nice
too.
too. But then Grendel's mother shows up.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so we have sort of a genealogy
It is-
here,
Yes.
because both of them are descendants of Cain, which
Okay.
which we can get to.
Right,
But
right.
That is so. That's the
Right.
first indication that this is not an
Christian,
entirely. I was like, I didn't
it's not
guys.
a pagan
You
story.
guys are bringing the Bible into this,
Right. Now, there's
Was that right? And the question for scholars, was that inserted?
Yeah.
right?
Or not?
Right. Yeah. So Grendel and Grendel's mother are both descendants of Cain. They live out in the wastes, and they're miserable. And for those of you who don't know the Bible, Cain was the first murderer. And so Grendel's mother now wants to avenge. Yeah, cast out, and we had a mark put on him. And okay. So then Grendel's mother wants to avenge her dead son. Grendel's mother comes in, kills one of Beowulf's dudes, and then flees. And then Beowulf has to go pursue Grendel's mother, where she lives kind of like a beaver. You have to go underwater.
It's under the lake. It's a lair. I mean, it's an air-breathing location, but you can only get there by water.
Yeah, so I picture it as like a beaver.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I was wondering, how does the air stay down there, or whatever? But yeah, that's pretty good.
So Beowulf dives down in the water with armor on, which is a really stupid thing to do because you can't swim with armor on, and goes down there, gets captured by Grendel's mother, gets dragged to her lair. His sword is no use against Grendel's mother.
Well, hold on, before this fight.
Yeah.
I want to talk about trash-talking Unferth.
Okay.
So Beowulf shows up, says, I will take care of this, and then you get... Is he a son? Is he Hrothgar's son?
I don't remember, but I do remember
he's like, oh, Beowulf, I remember that time when you went in that. So you're the guy who's going to kill Grendel? Aren't you the loser who lost that swimming competition with so-and-so?
Yeah. So Unferth is a Dane, son of Eclof and retainer of the Hrothgar, taunts Beowulf, lends his sword, hunting to Beowulf.
Yeah,
so Beowulf's like, all right, I guess you got me.
Is that guy?
Yeah, he's that guy. He's like, he can't do it. He obviously Beowulf is coming to do what you can't do. Yeah. But you're still going to trash talk the guy and kind of run him down.
Right.
Oh, aren't you the guy? Oh, so you're the one that's going to... And then the Beowulf's like, okay, well, you're drunk. And for one, and I see you haven't done anything here. Right. Obviously, because you would have killed Grendel if you're such a good guy. So he's like, yeah, well, I went on this... He says, yes, we had a swimming competition. We swam for 5 days. Sea monsters came in. The gun guy says, yeah, I heard you killed 30 sea monsters. Ha ha ha. He goes, no, it's just 9. And then, yes... Actually, he did beat me to the beach after I killed 9 sea monsters. So, in a way, you're right. But
I had an excuse.
And you're a jerk. And feel free to go kill Grendel if you want. I love that person. Okay, so
right. So Beowulf is under the lake. Yeah. Getting into the beaver's den. So
right.
And what happens after that?
Well, he fights the monster and he can't kill it. And he
brings his sword. Actually, Unferth gave him a sword.
Right, and he tries that sword, and it doesn't do any good.
No.
And he sees this old sword hanging on the wall in the Grendel's lair. Yeah. Grendel's mother's lair.
Kind of
grabs that
and Deus Machina kind of a thing.
Yeah. Kills Grendel's mother, and then chopped up. Apparently, Grendel's body is there in the lair.
He does die from his arm ripping off.
Yeah.
But
so that's the one thing I didn't catch in my translation. Was Grendel dead, or was he dying when his head was chopped off?
I'm pretty sure he was already dead.
Okay. He was already dead. I think he chops off Grendel's mom's head, right? He doesn't chop off Grendel's.
No, he chops off Grendel's head and takes Grendel's head back with him as a trophy.
Oh, I thought he took Grendel's mom's head back. I see. Okay.
Yeah. So then now he's killed both the monsters, and he gets, once again, he's praised, and he gets all these golden jewels and everything else, and then he leaves, goes back to his land. The king dies. He becomes king. He's king for 50 years. And then
50 years is pretty peaceful and prosperous.
And that's like 2 lines. In the
right. Yeah, I know. You really get there. You get there really fast.
Peace and prosperity.
It's what they're right about. Yeah.
Yes. And so now he's at a very minimum 70.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Beowulf can't be younger than 20.
Right.
At the time. So.
Yeah, because he's already 70. Done a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So he's 70, and he hears about this dragon, and he has to go kill this dragon, because this dragon's been sitting on the sword for 300 years.
I know. Isn't that weird that I want to do a show, we're going to do a future show just on dragons. And how did it come to be that the image of dragons is them guarding
treasure.
I mean, what is he going to do with the golden goblet? He's a dragon.
Well,
that's what they do.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Peterson.
Yeah.
Has a big section.
Peterson has a lot about dragons. Yeah. He talks a lot about dragons.
Oh, good. We'll save that.
Okay, so he goes to kill this dragon. Now, the dragon was awakened after 300 years because some schmuck went into his cave, stole a goblet. Which is interesting.
One goblet!
Which is interesting because that's what Bilbo does. Bilbo steals a goblet from
that
Smaug.
Makes sense.
And that's what causes Smaug to come out.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay, so here
we have, in this story, this schmuck goes in, steals the goblet. The dragon now wakes up after sleeping for 300 years, comes out and attacks the villages. Beowulf's got to go kill it. Brings 12 assistants, 12 shield thanes or whatever they call them, to go help him out.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've got fire retardant shields.
He's got a special shield and everything else. Yeah. Goes in there. 11 of the guys run for their lives.
They're gone.
Yes. And the only
Do you need any help?
Courage fails them.
That's right. The only guy who's Wiglaf or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Right. The only guy who stays, and he gives some good speeches. Berating the other guys. Yeah. And between
he's not really a lot of help when the fighting comes.
Well,
but at least he sticks around.
kind of means courage.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So no, Wiglaf actually deals a blow to the dragon, but Beowulf has to kill him with his dagger because his sword breaks or something like that. But he gets bitten, he gets poison from the dragon, and he's dying. And then
in the process, right? And what they die together.
No, Wiglaf lives.
The
dragon lives.
The
dragon dies.
The dragon and Beowulf.
Right.
Yeah.
And Wiglaf becomes the new king.
Right, because he was the faithful one, and Beowulf apparently doesn't have an heir. So he gets all this money, which it sounded in my version as if they put all the money in the barrow when they buried.
I know, I hated that
part.
But
what's really fascinating?
How about just like a shield and a sword?
Yeah,
Is that good enough?
Yeah.
No, they put all the money.
They put all the money in there. So what were you going to say?
And this goes back to what you're talking about, the dragons and the treasure, right?
Yeah.
Because Beowulf's last ask of Wiglaf is, show me the treasure.
Right.
Show me the treasure.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes back and shows him the treasure, tells him about the great treasure that they found, and that's when Beowulf is like, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out of here.
Yes, but if he had said, that's great, now I can bestow this on my people, and they will live wealthily ever after.
Yeah, redo everybody's roof in the neighborhood.
But the thing is the treasure isn't, and the treasure's symbolic.
Right.
The treasure that the dragon is actually guarding is more of a spiritual treasure, and the dragon is everything that keeps you away from your spiritual self or treasure or whatever. That's sort of the way.
So let's get into the interpretation of these monsters, since you've started on that. Because Grendel and Grendel's mother are one kind of monster, and the dragon is a completely different kind of monster.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
and that's why I think there's a difference there.
Okay, and there were two stories smashed together.
And the two stories, which is totally fine.
No problem with that.
I mean, it was Animus that decided. He's written down a lot of things, but he was the one that decided to write this down, and he could write it the way he wants.
That's right. That's right. So Grendel and Grendel's mother are both more evil human kind of characters. They have envy, they hate, they do things out of spite, they do things out of revenge. And you could almost interpret them as like the shade of the Viking pagan culture. Like that's kind of the dark side of the Viking pagan, where the dragon is just sort of a force of nature. The dragon the dragon wants to sit on gold. And doesn't really do anything until somebody comes and takes something from it. And you don't get the same sense of, the dragon's mad that you took some of its gold, but it doesn't have the same kind of human qualities that Grendel and Grendel's mother have.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And the dragon, as you say, like Peterson, which he got from Jung, would say that the thing you most need is the place you least want to look. And And that's why dragons sit on treasure, because like in order to get to the treasure, you have to go through the dragon.
Mm.
So the dragon is like this
facing your worst fear.
Facing your fears, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Psychologically, yeah.
Yeah, and then there was also apparently somebody tried to like Freudianize the whole story and try to make Grendel and Grendel's mother into some like psychological aspect.
Yes. But Robert Zemeckis, who directed the semi-animated movie of Beowulf, was clearly in that Freudian zone.
Yeah,
because she's. I never thought that Grendel's mom was hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you?
No.
But I mean,
she was just
going back to the Norton Critical Anthology here with all of the scholars telling me what it means.
Right.
There and reading something that Joseph Campbell wrote. The fact was Grendel's mother and is a little bit shadowy. It's Grendel's mother and maybe Grendel's even wife. So there is sort of, I mean, there is an Oedipus kind of thing, but I don't think that,
hold on, the Zemeckis version is that, first off, the house of Heorot, is cursed because Grendel is the evil spawn of Hrothgar and some sea witch.
Yeah, this monster who is
then there's some sexual element between Beowulf and
so here
Grendel's mom.
Hrothgar mated with the sea witch and made Grendel, and then Beowulf falls into the same situation and makes some other monster, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it is following that.
And then in that one makes the dragon.
Yeah.
Because in that one he never leaves Daneland.
Yeah.
He
stays there, right?
He stays there and becomes the king,
right?
After Hrothgar.
Of the same place.
Yes, of the same place. So there's never that transition back to Geekland.
Yeah. So they definitely mess with the story in the movie. So if you've seen the movie, the book is different. It's not like that. Now the translation that I read was a guy named Doug Wilson, and he has an interesting theory on the structure and purpose of Beowulf, and you'll notice I wrote down this little note: less than the flood. The Beowulf story refers to the Bible, but it never refers to anything past the flood.
Past the flood,
right? It refers to.
You know what? I had heard that there's nothing about the New Testament, but you're going all the way back to the flood.
There's nothing about David, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. There's nothing about Moses. None of that. The only reference you have to the Bible is God and Cain and the flood and the monsters that supposedly came about from the mating of angels and human women. So all that stuff is pre-flood. So his theory is that the author is trying to present the people, the pagans in Beowulf, as sort of like, from a strictly biblical point of view, everybody on the planet is descended from Noah and his kids, right?
Yeah.
So everybody would have that much knowledge of the Bible. They would know about everything up to the flood. So he's picturing them as these pagans as having that level of knowledge about God and having that covenant between God and man, which is, if a man sheds a man's blood, by man will his blood be shed. You can eat animals. It's kind of relatively basic stuff in the covenant with Noah. So he's saying that the author is portraying them as sort of the best that paganism can do. But even at that, even the best that paganism can do, there's still no hope. There's no, they just fall into this killing one another back and forth. The Were Guild is you pay a price when you kill somebody.
So are you saying that is why we don't have Christ-like imagery of forgiveness and
exactly. So what he says that Beowulf is sort of like the unchrist. That Beowulf is the one he's the best pagan that you can get.
That's not good enough.
And that's not good enough. He is doing everything. He's going out and putting his life on the line. He's rescuing people. He's being unselfish. He's giving away property. He's a good king. He dies to save his people.
Right.
And despite all of that, it ends with no hope.
Ah,
I think that's kind of an interesting read on the story.
that is an interesting read.
Well, yeah, that is. Yeah. Wow.
I thought that Beowulf was Beowulf as a hero in the year 800 or whatever, an evolution of the hero from ancient Greece or whatever. In that there's a lot of emphasis on him being well spoken, him being fair and compassionate. Like even after the little dust up with Unferth, he
doesn't beat him up or anything.
No, not at all. He sort of is very that's part of what makes up this new hero, unlike the hero that just kicks ass everywhere.
Right. So, right. It's the pagan virtues, right?
Yeah.
Prior to Christ.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, that's the point from Douglas Wilson. I thought it was an interesting take on it. Do you have any other? I also want to talk a little bit about kennings, because I kind of fell in love with kennings.
What is that?
So you see a lot of things in the story where it talks about the sea isn't the sea is the whale road or the swan road, and the king isn't the king, he's the ring giver, or that. So you see all these little pairings of words that you have to stop and think about for a minute, and it makes the story just a little more interesting and a little more colorful, and it kind of slows you down and makes you think about what you're reading. I thought that was kind of cool.
What I have a couple here, and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
I brought my mace down on the man's brain bucket, and with my dagger I slit his beer tunnel.
There you go. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Great.
So I will never think.
You can't get better than that.
Throat will always be a beer tunnel.
A beer tunnel for me. And the brain casing, brain bucket.
It's funny. My translation takes the poetry right out of it.
Yeah,
it is really.
This thing is so filled with alliteration that I get what you're trying to say, but I found all right. Let me just sum up wrap this thing up here, and I'm gonna give you. We can all give our experiences.
Okay.
My experience was, I enjoyed learning about Beowulf. Actually, reading this thing was insufferable. I had to refer to second and third references to barely follow what was going on, and I'm glad I did it, but I would never have done this if you guys didn't make me.
Well, I had a decent time with this translation. It's a little more readable than yours, and it takes work, but I think it's work that's worth it. It's interesting. I did find myself at times reading through, going, I'm really not sure what's going on at this point, but it didn't bother me. So yeah.
I'm with you on the idea that this did not touch me literally. In a literary way. Right. The poesy, of course, of the Donaldson translation, I don't think was there. And what I really enjoyed about it was more of its historical aspects. What does it really say about 750 AD, and what does it say about our culture as it just moved forward, as J.R.R. Tolkien sort of resurrected it in some aspects?
Yeah,
so I mean that was the important piece of. There's a great article in here that talks about English halls and the way they look and what they mean to the English culture, and how the Beowulf poem really gave insight into that. I thought, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's okay.
Very good. I feel like now it's referenced a lot, and now I feel like I know what the hell I'm talking about. All right.
So here's to your brain bucket.
And what, your beard tunnel?
And your beer tunnel. And your beer tunnel. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.